Taiwan Sanga coming change. Getting my pet and my job. Big our children.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm so happy to see you all here.
You know, that was a summer. That our pretty archibald. I read it to come to some speech. Zuki, what you read my tongue and talk of the sound. They long saved the location, long saved looking Jordan, compound already. Compound tiny already, and Jordan Matabari. Long saved the other half over. Didn't try to be able down to try the saline. You know, it's a constitution.
So we love each other very much, and maybe some of you were a bit worried over the past time that we haven't physically met with each other, and we think that when you meet somebody it's different, but actually if you know the nature of the mind, then you understand that the real connection is within the mind, and that the body is just like an empty building. And it is impermanent. All physical relations are impermanent. So it's important to understand the connection we have in the mind. But anyways, before I speak to you, actually, I'm going to turn to the questions because they are really excellent questions, and first answer them, and then share with you whatever I do know.
Drop Papa, Taki Chimbori, drop Papa, Semti, Karis and Hora, down Contegi or it, Saji Septi or it. Saji Septi, you carriage by Monana Song. Seven along the relative, several relative Saji. Seven along the soccer man at the same period. Neromati, Raga, Semdi, Nero de. Mato di circan torres. Tatiki, Tikali, Dagini, said the Dagini, Moso Kaka Samuel, what thinking so to travel, Mani Dagini, some jury. They did not send Sajik 7 years, Takitangori. 7 years, Sajik 7 years, the Hakoson. This is Tama Hakori. Just a Nama that I send the Lanis of Divination. 7 years Hakoson. Muso Sama same to me, Masi, send the only Sama, so send it to Paris. Hakokori.
So there are 3 questions that I have here, and I'm going to first answer the second one. It says, what is the main reason I have not yet realized my true nature of all pervasive love and wisdom? So why is it that we are sentient beings wandering in samsara? There's a duality of samsara and nirvana, of Buddhas and sentient beings. Why is that? In the Samantabhadra prayer, it says, when you realize the nature of your mind, you are a Buddha, and whoever does not realize the nature of their mind is a sentient being. So we think this way because we have not realized the nature of the mind, and for as long as we have not realized the nature of mind, love and compassion is most important because we perceive self and others. So we think, all of us think that there is this self and other. We see each other separately. And even a little insect has this perception of self and other. The Buddha said you have to look at your mind, analyze or understand your mind. When you understand your mind, you know everything. And it is said appearances are your own mind. And we all have this same mind. Whoever has a mind has that very same natural state of the mind.
사지게 하고 그래. 서로를 빠지는 봐 여기 뒤선 나는 딸지 따로 속자 정문 가래 제거도 뒤 가래 상도 때딱 때다 제일 빠게 다 서로들 무조건 빠게 파딱 때다 파는 다 줘야 어머니 이렇게 라린 소리면 샘도 눈에 주변 타다 잘 샘 파사 맞게 다 줘야 어머니 저 샘도 와께서는 다 하고 그러지 이게 엄마 차다를 봐 사이 차 처리 조 매리 옥롱리 샘 남카리 샘도 남카 체미는 샘은 내려오면 이제 하고서는 진짜 정지지만 가는 샘도 남도 그 노마기 쳐도 저요래 대칼 샘도 토마니 다지니 진짜 삼로 맞다고 공했더니 내 토만 되는 것도 그래 파이 어디 이제 토라 샘 거기 때문에 그래 니 샘한테 니좀 이 세상사 띵 나오지만 물론 랩이 진짜 나도면서 이 나오는 초거리 다 새로운 일이 장난되네 이 세분대로 맞도버리 생사지가 세분대는 세분이면 무슨 상관 샘지 발이지 샘 남카가 빛남 그게 막 잡사로 말이지 사자치고 들고 사자치고 하고 그러더니 샘 되겠다 막 잡사면 돼 누구보다 사막가 잘만 가족들은 사 샘을 막 잡사는 소시 모아서 상하면 너는 때 세분대로 샘도가 막 잡사면 돼 그리 때들 안 한 게 내와도 매일 낭나만 나서 때라 저 봐야는 저도 끼는 봐도 니들 자도 오만서 이러고 야 상도는 저 양쪽은 통용 말데 이제 저도 저 와야지 이제 실내들이 세분 이제는 남카리 남카비 다 세분대로 양대 상마다 실내검 남도 저점에 샘대가 돼서나 그리 세분이 땅이 14사오 땅이 14대기 남도 저점 맞은 거 진짜 또지 시키 14사오 참 14사오 나도 지금 샘을 남카지와 차는 거리 오 말아리 샘만 남카 제별 죽을 오겠지만 사지 추적거도 되게 거리 랑시 사제에 봐 마서 뭐 맛이 있어 난 세분 내놓고는 샘이 남카리 르는 좋아하는 걸 고자잖아 그리 하고 그러지
When we look at the outer world, on the outer level, we have the 5 elements. And we have the entire world comprising the 5 elements. And then on the smaller level, we have our own body. Our own body also consists of the 5 elements. Even at the tiny body of a little insect, for example, little animal, consists of the 5 elements. And that little body has the same nature as the entire outer world, consisting of the 5 elements. So we can actually take our body and dissect it into the 5 elements. When you look at your body, then you can see how the body is composed of and what your mind is all about. And this is what the Buddha had realized. He faced inward. Whereas those who project outward, they discern outer objects that they see. For example, they look at little animals, what are they doing, what are they eating, and so on. Scientists analyze the outer world. But this is not how we can ultimately understand the reality of things. In the 37 practices, it says, so appearances are your own mind, and from the beginning, mind's nature is free from the extremes of elaboration. So this is how we need to come to an understanding of ultimate reality, by looking at our mind, by cutting the root of the mind and not the outer external phenomena. And this root of the mind is present within us right now. We just need to recognize it. So when we dissect the body into those 5 elements, the flesh and the bones are the earth element, the blood is the water element, the body heat is the fire element, our breath is the wind element, and the mind is the space element. The mind is no different than space. So those who have understood the true nature of the mind, experience it as space-like in nature. That is when there is no more dualistic thought of subject and object. Actually, it is our thinking mind that creates all the disturbance in the mind, which is like making pure water become like muddy water. So first, self and other arise. And before that, there is not a single thought. And so before that single thought of there's a self, that is, we can say, where it all begins. For example, when you go to sleep and you're like unconscious, then you wake up, and then it starts with the first thought, and you think, I have slept, I just now woken up. So immediately the sense of an I arises. And so then again, that leads to a dualistic grasping of self and other in those who have not realized the nature of the mind. So the Buddha said there is no duality within the mind, and all of our mind is one and the same. And realizing that is to realize Mahamudra. When you realize Mahamudra, you realize that mind pervades everything. So there is nothing not pervaded by mind. For example, if you prick yourself with a needle, then you will feel it at any spot, wherever you prick yourself. The mind goes there, and mind is there. Wherever you prick yourself, that's where the mind is. So there's nowhere that the mind is not pervading. And still, we experience different feelings of suffering and happiness due to our own individual karmas. But the mind is just like water. And even though it is like water, water can temporarily change its appearance. For example, it can become milk tea that I drink, or it can become toilet water, which I would not drink. So the nature of mind is just like that, like pure water, or it is like space. So we come to an understanding of the nature of mind through practicing meditation. So first, we calm the mind to a state of calm abiding, where there is not a single thought within the mind. When you then observe this thought-free mind, you come to a real understanding of what the mind is. And you recognize there is this clear awareness that looks at the mind, that is free from all conceptuality, free from any grasping. The mind just is empty and clear, just like space. Milarepa said, when you realize that mind is like space, you have realized the Dharmakaya. And so that is why the Buddha said, instead of facing outward, face inward and see the true nature of your mind. And so how we can understand it is by first analyzing and taking this, like dissecting the body into the 5 elements. So we find the mind in the space element.
네 justice 고 저거서 축근 시선 봐줘 내록 되니서 내록 지바데 강에 나도 생은 내록 대선 거리 내록 샘도게 감순 생긴 게 샘다 나가 가다 그 샘이 샘지바데 tek 봐도 요 말이 니요 말이 생은 내록 되나 대하 고성 들이 오 급진 로지랑 그 명아도 그는 손을 내록 또나 치바간 거 멋지 강을 호종 지나야 생구 내록 마소 사마시스고요 말이 탐지 지마들 사직을 하게 생구 내록 또래 들이 고하고 좀 참도 그러지 그래 빼잖아 하자 또 가버리지 가리 제저 사마 파떡 그러리 소랑랑 소 가리가 똑똑 딱지 오시고 말이 나가 서로 서지가 딱지 땅을 말이 생구 내록 다 사지 좀 내게 생구 내록도 이 내록 뭐또 이제들 따다다 르르 초와 조금 거리 들 때는 종안지 봐 대고리 대박 차지 소리 빡차도 뭐 런지 때디 그래서 그런 뭐 소리 들이 박차 방고 짜도면 됐다 내록 때에서 생구 내록도 때서 하고는 람상은 똑같이 박차를 받게 됐고 그랬어요. 대는 多了做的大意你没把它下过呢，这里杀青的是杀青他公用的是什么？哦，这样嘛，是不啦？都去了，是不那种话的，当然马上不是18岁我这个，当然马上不是的下过呢，是不是的？那到他去切的那这到身上看到可去抢，我第一也是这个他出呀，这个他出，打我第打我讲了，这个那到干了，这些都不有的，别出操着的。那多人차로 차로 내가 들이파 내도 뭐도래 내로 또죠 내로 또 세부 내로 또 뭐지 니지 다그지요 다다 다지 뭐 다지 야지 니지 지요 니지 니 som에 다다 니지 뭐 다지 니 요바들 다 남게 값을 다 인피를 로지 쏘고 제고 좀 산촉선들 인피를 로지 쏘고 뭐 답이 인피를 로지들이 초와주고 럽고 요만 센데 막 차대 빌라 초난을 가보는 식트고 이피를 올라 산축센데 상디디 정진이 자당 모두 다 유몽 족대 파이 식도 그래 대대 인피를 놓으면 차롱차는 가봐버리니 되게 싸도 막 차도 버리지 되게 대위는 되게 다 저거지 그저 산축센 저거래 되지 생분내로 또라지 좀 타러들이 생분내로 또 과디 나지니 말이지 마도가도 다 집어리 다지면 다 나나나서 박차가 됐더라. 드림비시가 박차 턱도래. 고아tam참 용하거든. 고아 용하 똑바쓰면 되는 요래. 고아들은 다 때리 셈내놓고 세분내놓고 대사 대 하고는 야고살 예상을. 대 묘를 드린 남도 샤는데 남도 박차가 됐더라. 남도 딱 샤는 배를 몇을 딴서 고소를 몇지들 고소를 말이 내 고소를 고소 강하고 내 고소를 고소를 쳤대는 내 고소한테 하자서 어디 못차 고소도 몇만 도를 바라보는데 그래서 다티까지 다 맞춰서 도를 대들이 그런 용남 쳐대는 그 남는 쳐가 다 벌써 독대라서 오고는 이 조람만 거 되게 속 말이면 세문에로 봐도 또다 대기 보는 이핑을 놓서래 조고 상지 이핑 세면 총수 타제도 이핑을 놓자시 보는 나도 총는도 요래 내려지 유몽 독들이 총총도 요래 인비래 대기 세문에로 또 오고는 또 들이다 상속세 사바도 이제 사바세비가 대기 지고 인소
Jigten Songkyun said in the Gongchik that what is taught is nothing but the fundamental nature of all phenomena. And so what is the fundamental nature of all phenomena? That is the mind. We have to understand the nature of our own mind. And so all the sentient beings in the three realms of samsara and myself or a single person have the same mind. There is no two minds. It is all one and the same. Also the omniscient Longchen Rabcham said in the Treasury of Pith Instruction, the Mengadum, he said, when you realize the nature of your mind, there is no higher learning than that. So even if you were to study your entire life, that alone would not lead to the realization of the mind. But if you realize the nature of the mind, there's nothing more to learn. Then you know everything. And this is what we call the all-knowing or omniscient mind. The mind that has realized its own nature. So then again, why is it that we have not realized it? It is very difficult. On the one hand, it is that it is very difficult to realize the nature of the mind. For example, like a knife that can cut everything else but not itself. So similarly, we can see everything else, but we cannot see ourselves. We project outward and we analyze what others do, but we never look at our own mind and do not understand what happens in our own mind. Therefore, the Buddha had said you have to understand your own mind. So it is through these physical sensations that we have, the 6 perceptions, that we develop thoughts of subject and object. And by following these sense perceptions, we create or reinforce our habitual tendencies. In the Samantabhadra prayer, it says, karmic tendencies grow stronger and thicker. So we have accumulated many of these karmic tendencies. And even though we might have an understanding of the nature of the mind, we know it, again, our habitual tendencies come back and they obscure our mind. So from our perspective, we see a duality of self and other. From the ultimate perspective of Mahamudra, it says, without a single thought, decisively look at your true nature. So without a single thought, think about nothing whatsoever and just look at your mind. And there is clear awareness. Then when you see this, you know, you recognize the nature of the mind. And this recognition occurs when all thinking comes to an end and the mind becomes like space momentarily. And all that remains is clear awareness that knows that this is it. And this awareness is what you need to hold on to. Then all the various thoughts arising in the mind will dissolve through awareness, or just like ice dissolving in hot water. When you give way to thinking, then the mind again becomes like an ice block. So the reason why we have not realized the nature of the mind is because of the self. We cling to the true existence of self and other. So we, on that level where we are on the level of the path, where we see a duality of self and others, what's most important is the altruistic mind, or the mind of bodhicitta. If you have bodhicitta, bodhicitta is a method for the mind not to become obscured. When you have bodhicitta, then the mind cannot become obscured by the 6 sense perceptions, and so the habitual tendencies will not arise. And in this way, various feelings generated by sense perceptions can naturally dissolve on their own. So this mind of bodhicitta is called Changjubsem, and Chang means to purify. So all the afflictive emotions, the 6 afflictions, become purified through that mind of altruism. If you lack altruism, the mind becomes like ice or like snow accumulating. Like Samantabhadra prayer says, the imprints grow stronger and thicker. So most important for us is the relative bodhicitta. And most important for us to realize the nature of the mind is the relative bodhicitta. And it is through bodhicitta that we realize the non-existence of self and other. So we have not realized that because we grasp it as self. We constantly think, me, me, me. And this is how these habitual tendencies grow stronger and thicker. So first we need to understand that. We go through a process of 3 steps. First we understand, then we experience, and then we realize. So first we need to understand that this is how the nature of the mind really is. And if I understand it, if I realize it, then I probably will realize everything. So first we understand that. And then we experience that. We experience it by actually looking at our mind and sustaining clear awareness so as to eliminate the habitual tendencies of conceptual thinking. For example, a thought arises, all of a sudden you get really angry at someone. If you know how to look at your mind, you will not project on the other person, but you will immediately look at your own anger and know that what I really need to see is my own mind. I need to see the anger. So you will look inward. And what you will see then in the state of anger is actually a very clear mind. And when you see it, then the anger will naturally go away. And then along with that, the habitual tendency will go away. So this is how we take the afflictive emotions as the path. we practice with the afflictive emotions in our day-to-day activities, for example, by practicing the 6 paramitas and so forth. So, the main reason why we have not realized the mind is because of a self. And that is why we need an altruistic mind. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So if you develop a vast altruistic mind, then the self will naturally diminish. And along with that, the 6 afflictive emotions will diminish. So in order to realize the nature of the mind, in other words, it is very important for us to cultivate immeasurable love.
There is same good nerok the thoughts, the Margaret said them, Joan and Javacayu, library. Be a water trolley. The Joan same chronometry, very shelter, Nima Javan, Jasonga, Shogun Gorita, Chapa the Niman, Nakoran Jasonga Sharmony, Joan I ran down to Joan is down. 강마를 이시가 차도를 미니 이시가 차 마미는 몽 도가 차도를 이 나선 설류들 조왕아 상거리 설류들 조왕아 상나 다디 선난 파를 자선 조왕 이제 데레들이들 조왕아진 강아지 니몽 동아리 미나 별이 생대 마미는 생대 매를 톡나 생대 탈라져 매는 정도거리 내는 니몽도 이시를 줘나 니몽아지 이시가 미니 줘거리 그다음에서 대니를 사제들이 이시가 보면 말이에서 그럼 보니 책가지들이 가서 무슨 거예요 이시가 니몽 이시를 미를 가리피 그리 니몽가 빼시담스럽다 세분내로 또 강사되나 다스는 거 내가 끼니 바르때 세상지랑 바로 싸우고 란사람이 세상을 옳쳤다 그래. 오늘 세상을 했어. 다 세상을 옳었더니 세상 그런 왕치 남도 직장 매봐. 다리 바로 벌 삼대 우리도 삼대 되는 게 매봐. 장인이가 매봤다는 님. 생동마 따자지. 세상 세면 내놓게 설렙서. 세상 매놓다고 이시리. 들이 몽이 실 미는 내는 몽하고들 얘기를 미게 격시라고 세분 내놓도 같아. 그 매다고 이시 매지. 내가 민소라 들이 다 되들이 다는 남자가 차도를 빼고 다들 상지 다 좋다 차도요래. 마음에 되는 몽을 세상에 그 바로 나라던 나서 보시면 그 나라도 땅속에서 다 고소라나. 들이 다 이모한테 체도 드시장에서 개들이 그들이 몇 동수 들이 타마라시 자들이 저거들 디스레가 sama 똑같은 식 제가하고 제당나 제당 싶어서 저들 내가 샘도 쭉 알고 그 샘을 알생지 화라 제당을 동해요래 똑같이 장님 못 따라가게 라가니 뭔가 바로 보다 제당 라사베 바로 보다 제당을 차도 그렇더라 비대다 그러더니 뭔가 보는 이들은 들이 잡아는 차 송송 그동안서 이 뭔가 미나 들이다도 살려 이제 통지 이 시간 뭐 뭔가 라족지 다나 이 시간 오면 따라 들이 닫고 생각하는 거 생각하든지 되노라 이거 다른 이제 송우랑 이거 요래 비슷해 미나 들이 조왕아지 생 조왕아다 난이 뭔가 또 생는 뭔가 로봇을 생 조왕아 요래 차라로 봐서 생는 뭔가 되는 제가래 대문들이 유무바 가리 속시는 나는 나 사용되게 용리 차 속시는 사변나 사용 거리 나타렉서는 롱치 베긴 쓰고 나사데 또 먹고 나타 베긴 집에다가 시당 노차가 나타더니 노차데 생나송들이 대대대회는 들이다다니 롱다 집앞 베긴 좀 노차 롱 세상 쳐봐, 또목 백기 있어, 농축 백기 있어. 내려더니 라라랬지. 들이 내리 잡다니 들이 요거요래. 대하고는 세 중앙한테 나다 간다 찍어 좀 내려다 와서 더니 3일 세면 내려다 와서 세 중앙한테 차용나. 들이 사요요 말이 내가 차면지 들이 배는 거 자축 비선 밥로 또 되면 미 차라는 뭐 나보 쇼네 나 세비 탐지 센터 다인이 되시오 이 셈톡 이 다다 초과자거든 시당을 초과자 뭐 배나 차소 초과자를 유몸을 맞을 진짜요 말이 자또 치고도 코 다디 정을 작하려고 세고 다디는 말을 때 팔았다 시당 나무 시당 차소를 내려와 대봐 밑에 말이지 유몸 맞지 너무 유몸 말이 대도 하고는 오다 선중앙하다 난 선중앙하다 난 세계 유몸아 된지가요 난 유몸아 하거든 내lok도로 이 시간에 미인고 요래 대회는 이제 나라 놈체세나 이 제다삼티고 저거 세면 내lok도 요래 거기 내lok도 요 말이 그렇지 않는 바깥에도 추대 고소를 지지와 판도 요래 저기 유명한 내lok도 그 같이 땅하다 라니 소리면 쏘는데 나 자용은 조바고도 싫네 빼야보는你用的上这个事情，你要这里先看看的到了，他妈俺老到了一头个东西，这个东西妈妈老到了，这个男的的，他这里，他这里的，谁才操就跑到哪的，他们现在打啥头从这里先一码都用了，说那么些人，这个做罢工的行为，这做罢工的行为，你他们这里上这个是行为，这到了，这里啥做成八的，当的呢，大的这个老的牛毛做的叫上升了。一批个철철的大的上升，第刚才的大概的，大的跑上这个第三节做的，跑的是吧？做的，这他上节强了，上节中他的大级你们个上升了，大级你的上升了，这上的节的什么发到加速了，这加速的赶紧做的，没你那个养大完的，抓的，这心里个只有嘞，抓的做他妈的，这。대답을 그래서 루즈 쪼지 그래 다다다 공시 루즈 쪼지나 다 루즈 다 요가 당한데 다다 뭐 루즈 사소탈 루즈 쪼지 남산지 셈 쪼지 상상하는 내로 쪼지 볼 때들 다들 루즈들 타러 들지라 다다 루즈 룽아 있고 사와 탐지들이 상쪽으로는 저들 센쪽으로 인피를 놓라 저거 요리 같이 동다 탐지 니는 빼야 본다.
And so, when you realize the nature of the mind, you see that there is a connection between the elements and the mind. And that's actually the first question here, which is also an excellent question. It says, what is the relationship between my mind and the 5 elements? So, for example, if you have a crystal ball and the sun is shining on the crystal, then naturally 5-colored rainbow light will emerge from the crystal. It is just like when rain and sun meet together, you have the appearance of a rainbow in the sky. And the appearance of a rainbow in the sky, for example, is the pure essence of the 5 elements appearing in those 5 colors. And that is related to the mind, the 5 afflictive emotions in the immature state. But when they mature, they become the 5 wisdoms. So the 5 colors in the rainbow also are the quintessence of the 5 wisdoms. So on the outer level, our body consists of the 5 elements, and that is now minus the space mind element, we have the 4 elements. And then in the mind within, we have the 5 poisons, the afflictive emotions. For example, if you have a piece of wood, when the wood is in a so-called immature state, it is just wood. But when the wood meets with fire, then the wood itself turns into fire. And that is how the afflictive emotions mature into primordial wisdom. So again, in the Samantabhadra prayer, it says, either you realize it or you do not realize it. But that is the nature. And when it matures into the 5 wisdoms gradually. Actually, everything is explained very clearly in the Samantabhadra prayer. So how does the afflictive emotion mature into wisdom? For example, a person who has realized the nature of the mind, if they get angry, for example, somebody insults them and then they get really angry, then they would not look at the other person, think about what the other person did to them, but they would immediately look at their own mind and see their own anger. And actually the power of that anger is that the anger completely wipes out any other thought, even the love that you've had for the other person. There is nothing in the mind, there's just the anger in the mind. But now if you were to act out on that, it would lead to the ruin of yourself and others. But then if you understand your own anger, then you will understand that just like you have anger arising in your mind, the other person has the same kind of anger arising in their mind. So there is this knowledge when you see your own afflictive emotion. Then the mind is completely clear, and you know that actually, when I look at my mind, it is at the anger. That is, I can see my mind within the anger. And when you see the clarity within the anger, then what you realize is the mirror-like wisdom. So this is how the afflictive emotion becomes transformed into primordial wisdom. And then we do the same with all the other 5 afflictive emotions. So when we realize the nature of the mind, then all these afflictions turn into the wisdom fire, and this is how they mature. And when the mind matures, you become a yogi or a siddha, a realized one. For as long as you do not realize the nature of mind, the mind is afflicted. For example, when you get angry at someone, if you are afflicted and do not see your own mind, then you would just think, well, he did that to me, how could he? And you get angry at the other person. And then as you keep thinking about what this person did, the anger just becomes stronger and stronger. And in the end, you're like bursting like a bomb, and you act out, you can't contain it. And you even maybe hit the other person. And in the end, you might even commit suicide. So all negative actions come from such grasping. So instead of that, if you know your own mind and you get angry, then immediately you will know that, oh, I'm angry. And that is, I look at my own anger. Our mind is the same. The person I'm angry at and my own mind, we are the same. And the person who is angry also suffers in the same way. And so in this way, the anger will actually gradually disappear. And this is how the 5 afflictive emotions mature into the 5 Buddhas, according to the Samantabhadra prayer. And then when the 5 afflictive emotions mature into the 5 wisdoms, it also can manifest as an external rainbow in the sky. And that's also the nature of the Sambhogakaya Pure Lands. They appear like rainbows in the sky, just naturally, as a result of maturation. So we have the 5 afflictive emotions in our physical body, and the 5 elements in the physical body, and the 5 afflictive emotions in our inner mind. And so we have mentioned the earth element is flesh and bones and so forth. And then looking at the mind, whichever of the afflictive emotions in the mind is predominant will also lead to various imbalances and illnesses. For example, if the heat element is stronger, if you're heaty in your mind, then that leads to heat-related diseases. In generally, we divide all diseases. There's over 200 different kinds of diseases. We divide them into 3 classifications. They are diseases of winds, phlegm, and bile. The phlegm-related diseases or kind of imbalances are related to ignorance, Then bile is related to anger, and wind is related to attachment, but attachment is actually joined with avarice or stinginess. And so then each of the afflictive emotions then manifests itself as a physical imbalance. And that also does not just manifest in our own body, but also in the outer world. The elements become disturbed. On the other hand, someone who has realized the nature of their mind and in whose body and mind are in a balanced state, then to them they will not experience the harm of, let's say, earthquakes or untimely rains and so on. But the Buddha had said that it is because the minds of beings is disturbed that there is a lot of conflict in the world. For example, we can also now see there is fighting and war in the world. And none of these conflicts arises from anything else but the afflictive emotions. So it all arises from afflictive emotions, and fighting and war, especially from anger and hatred. Because someone's self-grasping is very strong, they develop jealousy and hatred against others, other countries, for example. And then they harm them. But we need to keep in mind that it's not the person, but it's the afflictive emotion. And again, the outer world, the 5 elements, are connected to the inner 5 afflictive emotions. So when you understand that, you will look at your mind and in this way mature your 5 afflictive emotions into the 5 wisdoms. The third question here said, how can I cultivate love for those who harmed me? So these are all really excellent questions. So how can we cultivate love for someone like that? It all actually is connected, all these questions. When you, again, look at your mind, then you're not projecting outward to the other person who has harmed you. You know that if I get angry, then it just harms both of us. So if you know the nature of the mind, then you practice according to the 37 practices. And in the 37 practices, it says that the more others harm us, the better it is, because then we have someone that we can practice patience with. So all those who harm us are our benefactors of patience. So it's excellent when someone harms me. And then if someone helps me, then that's also excellent, because then that person becomes a benefactor of love. So in this way, everything we do becomes an accumulation of merit. So there is only 2 fields, 2 kinds of individuals. There is the benefactors of patience and the benefactors of love. So our enemies and so-called enemies and our friends. And this is how one becomes a bodhisattva. So the Buddha had said that therefore eliminate the self-cherishing mind and cultivate the altruistic mind. So this term Chang Chup Sem is the mind of bodhicitta. So the Chang is purifying self-grasping, and Chup is to master. So to master or to cultivate the altruistic mind. So a person who does that will practice the 6 paramitas in whatever they do. And in the end, there will be no more self and other to them. So that is not the word Buddha in Tibetan is Sangye. And Sang means that, to clear away all dualistic thoughts. And Gye means vast or expansive. So then when all dualistic thinking is cleared away, the mind becomes vast like space. So these 3 questions are really excellent questions, and they all really point to the actual nature of the mind, and the fact that one is even able to ask a question in this way also shows that one has an understanding of the nature of the mind. So these are really the best questions. So we normally consider our body as most important. For example, we take good care of our body, we practice yoga, and so forth. On the outer level, the pratimoksha, or individual liberation, focuses mainly on the body. Then on the inner level, the bodhisattvas focus mainly on the mind of bodhicitta. And then on the secret level, in Vajrayana, we focus on the actual nature of the mind. So what we need to aim for in our activities of body, speech, and mind is that we transform our body, speech, and mind into a mind of bodhicitta, into altruism. So actually, this is the meaning of all the teachings that you can ever receive, and they're all actually contained within these excellent questions.
다 사정 절로 마톡 참아지 다시 당 대례 연구요래 대례 남규지 생기지 설명들이 까보 갭지부터 당게 좀 그렇지만 상세대에서 남규지 생기게 내로 레드리야는 냐스나나 그래 선수지 대대에서 대를 놓으래 대례티 내로 마토베 되는들이 뉴모와나 주바게 뉴모와나 주베게 다시 좋아할 때 선제들 다 생종아 낭만속 동의 삼지들인 종요래디 데레 저가 다 데레디 데레 인제 농세세 반디 농세세 바들 가리들 삼지고 이제 무슨 산초세데 다른 동네 지하다 상마제가 상제는 나지의 자원이 와디 차리 이 지비로 코나들이 돈나고 되면 나지니 매매 있으면 이시 또고 제대 이때 독재를 쪽대 삼지고 그래. 차롱도 저거는 인기분이 니만 줘라 뛰는 저거 그래. 이 조제들이 지는 조바만 거나. 다리 조제 야도를 변 조매가 차로 변 산속선대 세기 오만다고 그래. 녹사 세진 후고 그래. 세진 조바요 그래. 다 체도 당초 타고 그래. 산속선대 세기 오만 이는 적바 스바스민 적장 왜 바카래. 그다음은 시스템 직장 마트라면 되고는 착과면서 데이터도 마토고 받을 산속세도 도고래 산속세도 쌓치버리 이 조바면이 쇼도 데이터 조바 공고 돈들래지 디선데 라니 소비면 개별론 쪼도 베자세라시 개별론 쪼가는 산속세를 노지 담들 시대 당도 아세 조바 공나들이 다들 조바 표기를 빼지다 니 동선 서디바시나 동대레스 내로 마토베 뉴모나 주바체 뉴모나 주베체 베타사다 답변은 동해만 보치야 뉴모모 체요레 내르티네 따체를 가려 다 좋아 공고래 산속세도 다 보잖아 그러자 그 있잖아 랑겔라 산속세도 다 보자 데리테르다 가는 누가 동해매야 여기 어디 레준데 찾을 타왔던 거 요래지 좀더 좋아다 하자 같이 보래 데리테르 조된 금장 모나 같이 요래 토만에 칼로를 금장 모나 빠지다 이 금장 모나 인사오 답이요래 금장 모나인데 양도 그들로 어디 제시할 때나 일진을 야고요래
So to summarize it, so it is through the fault of not having realized the nature of the mind that sentient beings cultivate ordinary afflictive emotions. And these ordinary unrestrained afflictions, they accumulate karma. And that karma then creates what we just mentioned before, all the imbalances in the world of the 5 elements, earthquakes, floodings, wars, and so forth. It all comes from anger. So then also the sentient beings engage in some virtuous actions. And then as a result of that, they experience happiness and purify their obscurations. So if one understands the nature of the mind and practices while being heedful of karma, then naturally one's outer environment will also become pleasant. It's the nature of things, the nature of karma. So again, because we have not realized the nature of the mind, we give way to ordinary, unrestrained, afflictive emotions, and they are related to the 5 elements. So the elements become disturbed, and we experience on the outer level disturbance of the 5 elements, destruction by the 5 elements, and on the inner level wars and fighting and so forth. So that is the fact that these happen are signs, and that we have ordinary afflictive emotions. And then now regarding the question of what to do when others harm us, that is when we need to cultivate love and patience and bodhicitta. Because if you hold on to only that, if you only hold on to bodhicitta, then eventually, as you go from lifetime to lifetime, self-grasping will become completely eliminated, and you attain enlightenment. You see the ultimate truth, that there are no self and other. You realize primordial wisdom. In order to realize this, you must cultivate love. Just like in order to melt ice, you must have heat, otherwise it won't melt. And so, therefore, if you do not practice patience with others, then the heat that melts the ice block is leaving you. You become cold. So we need love, or bodhicitta, and patience. Bodhicitta is like lion's milk. And patience is the vessel, a golden vessel. So lion's milk must be contained in a golden vessel. And patience is that golden vessel that contains the lion's milk. It is also called lion's milk because if you have bodhicitta, then you have nothing to be afraid about, just like a lion. Or as it is said in the 37 practices, in the Samantabhadra prayer, even if the 3 worlds were to be destroyed, there is no fear. There is no attachment to the 5 desirables of the senses. Until that is realized, bodhicitta is most important. And to sustain your bodhicitta, you need to have patience. So as it is said in the 37 practices, to all those who desire a wealth of virtue, all those who do harm are like a precious treasure. So we practice patience with everyone. So this wealth of virtue is the mind of bodhicitta. And the more others harm you, the more your patience will increase. So it is a good thing. So again, to summarize, because we have not realized the nature of the mind, we develop ordinary afflictive emotions. And that is why there is so much suffering in the world. It is all created by these afflictive emotions. So what do we need? We need to cultivate patience. We need to hold on to bodhicitta in a personal sense and also in a general sense. So even though we hold on to bodhicitta, we may still encounter harm. Harm still comes our way because of karma. Karma is still functioning. Everything follows karma. So anyways, these 3 questions were really very important questions. And also to find an answer to them, you can turn to the Samantabhadra prayer. Everything is really contained within this prayer. And it was one of my first activities after release from prison of printing this prayer and distributing it. Because it is very clear. So any answer to these questions can be found in the Samantabhadra prayer.
Ini tata di ta yoga lamang bo phe yore yoga chi ban di kang yin di ke tang ro rik chok de nang ni de di ta ko so kang chok di nyam lu bo za chen bo ri de cha me ha ko yore kang ni de la sa ta pin de ta ka sum ba ri sa ta le hin ko la yore Lena the Dungy Captain Nucha, Little Jata Ramuti, Lotang, Dimbe, and Horshin, and Telesolante, Lidi pay 2 tongues, Shina, Sajaka, Wantova, Ranging Penny, Sajaka, Ludiet. Marshall said that you would be 2 tongues, Nina coveting on Ludi. Like the tapestry, the Louis, Nina coveting on Tree. Ludi said, Doctor, Dandy, Wang Johnny. There isn't water, 3 Tamadin is so mean. There is the road, the Linen is over the canal, Porto, or the really. There is still a little half or something. Little cook Taba than you are, Seven Taba than you. The GP lost the torture and rice and saw can't change. Soon I'm with in and Toshibari, young Yori. The little territory looks our carriage and lose the tongue chet the task you are done with Yori. Then tell them 70 about that name. Oh, Mark Memanta Jacob Pingos, round at the said to the Chiboy and learn that time about 7 don't give me a child awesome. 7 don't give me a curriculum. Little Shanghai Shina, Tap or Tankaro, Kampa or the literature, the Raji, the Pumma, the Bong, Charlie, Saint Juan, Nang, someone is sing, Nantini, Tari Kandi, Dawarin, Charlie, somebody tell us what. This is the one carried. Not to damn and just in the state of the system, not to Sancho Wangel, Dardini, even not to Sancho Wangel. This is a little the tongue chana, this is the Rangel losing nature, Pumbo Margit of the Pumbo Margit, the little Mao and Basande, Maret, the tree so time, dream Mambon, the tree on it, counted to the Silica Hako, means the paper. Tongo is November Segor, then over the Pumbo, the Tapungo, Chadi, the Hagor, the tongue was the Tadonchina, the Tarjo, Jonathan, not some minutes, Tatam, don't, long to come to Rebbe, the director and cetera, 3 hours a day, little some the recharge. Margin to Colas or whatever you are. The day Margin for yoga, the Chupari, the La Coto di Miguel, Green Campion, 2 70 was oil. Oh, I did it not Jacadam Pingo, or Pingo saw the dog, I did the terrible, they be a child. The Miguel Tigon, the little nation, the Takampa of Amina song. Luigi Tankepina, Rangi, Luigi, the Justice song, the Dorji, the sun color yet. Luigi Tata Shata, the Lundi, Munation, the Dorji, Dorji, Cheshire Maple, or not in Jasunta. Luigi can't also Jackson and then saved the tree, several rounds of the Tata, the Sierra so. Don't go. Take him to one at a time. Jerem to one at a time. Long country, Terror, the support Dodge take penny or Tatara Sopala, said the Killer, the Venetini, there are 2 centi vacation or it. That let the Pumon Juliet, oh, the Duanga, Sanjinga, Kanga, Young Mazi. Son dinner in I have young and charge your Cashin, Nampa in, Nama, my Indy. Tita, Chibario money. So I didn't say the thought of it. So I did. Nobody, Nam 7 days, Shiraka, Nam 7 days, talk this up on the solo, Namba Jeremy. Don't little of the tiny shirk, so that's how I charge you. Nam 7 days, they thought you didn't number child. Now did it, said the Carico, the commission, to say, go. I took through the only the said, hold the paranasi, touch of one day. They were corrected, lose the tongue chair, lose the tongue chair, lose the tongue sooner. Oh, the couple of people that they are the dog go, some there is a test of tongue, they go to tell. 3 Ragging was so sharp, Pramang, Yori, this and the 몇 적들이 타와토들 남배시라더니 몇 적들이 잘 잡서가 들이 속참 차섬 차주인이 들이 상제 공부 톱도서 속차만 보도 이거 봐 대탑지를 넣어서 대상은 도요 봐 대탑지 체들에 대상으로 나치고서 나는 집안에 들은 가지 체를 도래 이제 요가장은 데려티니 네 따장 맞으니 자다 소가 저거거리더니 생고 고치가 요래 맨날 무슨 나무가 소가도 도나 달아서 다 잔디는 곳에 소가 지라서 내가 저거 거는 곳에 들이 책 나누는 때는 들이다 생고 고치는 데는 요가 있었지 고치를 데려실 쇼를 들이 요가를 따다 다니는 요래 따뜻하고도 루그티모 그런 저거는 속삼번 담아보고 대답지 대답이 채도 인선은 나는 좀 맞추고 말해 사람은 대다고 써먹었던 들이 요가 쓰고 써본 거네 들이 써먹었다고 쓰고 그럼 된단 말다고 하지 semti tamche pebekero o semti tamche kare nga de chede de mare so si nang le so cha ma ta ni yo o te ha ko te tamche de chede nga de na te tamche de ko cha yo le te ta de sa ma da ni go ni te sa ma ta ni ju che na te ta to ba de te so so ne se la se che ta ni de se che ta se che to pi ba de ta te kono sa ma da 답이 줄어들어요. 다 소원치는들이 답이 줄어들지나들이 라는 제가 총총마다 답을 말해 요가 가면 당사면 찾았을 때는 된 거래.
And so many of you came here to practice yoga, and so regarding that, so it is said that on the 6 realms of samsara, it is only the precious human body that possesses the 6 elements, and that is why the human body is considered very precious. So you all know about that. And regarding the human body and the use of the human body, Sakya Pandita said in the words of excellent advice in the very beginning, he said that if one is unwise, a foolish person, to them the body becomes the vessel that experiences all suffering. To them the body becomes an enemy. But for a wise person who knows how to use this body, the body itself becomes a basis for creating much merit. So if you use the body wisely, the body itself will lead you to attain enlightenment, and it will lead to the benefit of others and yourself. So when we say attaining enlightenment, it is really that through this physical body that we are able to attain enlightenment. On the other hand, if we do not use this body in this way, then it is the very body again that drags us down further into samsara, controlled by self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. So then we go deeper and deeper into samsara, and we take on various bodies in the 6 realms and even formless forms. So if you understand that, you will understand what it comes down to. How do you make good use of the body? It comes down to the connection of the body with the mind. So the altruistic mind is what is most important. The altruistic mind is what really drives all your activities of body, speech, and mind. And with altruism, we know how to make use of these actions of body, speech, and mind in order to create more and more merit. Also, for example, through a physical activity like practicing yoga. So we practice yoga mainly because it happens on the physical level, and it is for our physical well-being. But also, it must be connected to a motivation of altruism. So what am I going to do with a body that is well? I'm going to benefit everyone. I'm going to benefit this whole world or my country. So I'm practicing yoga, so I will stay free from illness, physical illness, and mental suffering. And what do I do with freedom from illness and mental suffering? I will benefit others. Also, the practice of yoga is also somewhat connected to the Vajrayana teaching. So in the Vajrayana, we say that the channels are the dakinis, and the elements, the drops are the dakas. And our body consists of the 5 aggregates and is pervaded by dakas and dakinis. And we often speak about how the 5 Buddhas and their consorts are in our body, and the 5 male and female bodhisattvas, the 8 male and female bodhisattvas are in our bodies, and so forth. But in brief, the reason why there is such a division is because there are many thoughts in our mind arising from self-grasping. And when all these many thoughts become overpowered by bodhicitta, then they become these divine beings of the Buddhas and the bodhisattvas, pervading our body and our channels and places. So the body, we say, is kind of a creation of the 5 aggregates, consists of the 5 aggregates, and we identify with that. We think that this is me, these aggregates are me. But actually, it's not just you. Even scientists has recognized that your body is pervaded by many subtle microorganisms, many different life forms. And scientists say that we have to cultivate the beneficial or microorganisms, and we have to get rid of they're not so beneficial, the harmful microorganisms. So really, ultimately, of course, the body is just like a pile of dust. But for as long as we are alive, the body is also pervaded by microorganisms. So when we train our body or we practice yoga, for example, it also affects all these life forms in our body. So when we are healthy, that means that we practice yoga to be healthy, which means that all these microorganisms are healthy. So when we are training in yoga, for example, it affects our channels, winds, and drops. So we are clarifying our channels, and then the winds move smoothly and are pervaded by the drops, by the subtle elements. And then when that becomes balanced, then we will experience a good physical health and also mental happiness. Also, the practice of yoga is related to a secret mantra, Vajrayana practice of yogic exercises, physical exercises that we use to balance the channels, winds, and the drops. So it's a great merit if you are a teacher of yoga. But the mind should be regarded as most important, thinking that I am using my body so that I can benefit the people and everyone in this entire world. If I practice yoga, I might have a longer life and be healthy. What I do with this long life of health is benefiting others. Also, so Jigten Sumgön also had said that in reality, one's physical body is called the Vajra body. So even though we have a body of flesh, blood, and bones, in reality, it is actually a Vajra body. And Vajra means that the body transcends birth and death in its ultimate nature, just like a rainbow in the sky. The physical body is like an empty building, and it will disintegrate, but not so the mind. The mind will continue on. And the rainbow-like body becomes a manifestation of the mind. And it is developed, for example, through practices such as the deity yoga, the generation stage, that develops this rainbow-like body arising from the mind through having balanced the channels, winds, and the drops. And we balance them through physical exercises as well. But what's most important is to have a motivation of altruism, of bodhicitta. So in our body, a body consists of the 5 elements, and it is pervaded by the 5 Buddhas, 5 kinds of Buddhas, and so the aggregates are said to be the 5 Buddhas, and the 5 elements are said to be the 5 female Buddhas. And then the various dakas and dakinis that pervade the body. So in any case, now some people say, I'm a Buddhist, or I'm not a Buddhist. People hold these views. In reality, there is no distinction. A person who is not a Buddhist, so the term Buddhism in Tibetan is, so it's Nangba, which means inward. So you're looking inward. So, and the opposite of that is outward. So if you're outward and not, so to speak, a Buddhist or an inwarder, if you're outward, then you're considering your body and this life as most important. As an insider, or one who faces inward, a Buddhist, they look at their mind, at their awareness. So in brief, if you consider your body as most important, then you are an outsider in a sense of projecting outward. And then if you consider the mind as most important, you are again an insider in a sense, you're facing inward, like a Buddhist. And in Buddhism, the mind is most important, and within the mind, it's bodhicitta. If you have bodhicitta, then whatever you do becomes an accumulation of merit. So think that I'm engaging in the practice of yoga for physical well-being, but this physical well-being will be used for the good of all, the benefit of all. And also keep in mind that my body is pervaded by all these microorganisms. And then it is said that if one person attains the rainbow body or attains the state of liberation, then all these microorganisms in the body will also attain that state. They will all attain enlightenment. And the Buddha had said that there are 1,300,000 different forms, different kinds of microorganisms in the body. And then, of course, of each of them, there is many. And they all become enlightened. They all are affected by whatever you do. So think that when I'm practicing yoga, it's not just for me, but I'm practicing it for all of these little microorganisms as well. If you just think that I'm doing this for me, for my physical and mental well-being, then the self-grasping will just grow stronger and stronger. But instead, what should happen through the practice of yoga is that through the 6 sense doors, using the 6 sense doors, the mind opens up. So when we see and hear and so on, through seeing and hearing and so on, or hearing words that we understand, and then through the senses, then the mind understands and opens up. And also often yoga is combined with music, or we just practice through music, and that is very similar. We should also think that I'm doing this to benefit all these millions, billions of microorganisms within my body. I'm not doing it just for myself. And in this way, the motivation becomes really pure. It becomes really beneficial for all sentient beings. So this is the motivation that we should have. We should think that I want to be well and happy, but because if I'm well and happy, then all of these other beings will be well and happy. So Jigten Sumgön was the one who said that quote, if you have bodhicitta, then whatever you do becomes a way of accumulating merit. So this is how we should engage in anything that we do with body, speech, and mind, including the practice of yoga, on the basis of love and compassion. Then whatever you do, if you just keep that in mind, anything you do becomes a practice of the holy Dharma. And whatever you do with a selfish mind, even if it looks like Dharma practice, will still only bear a very small result. So in any case, this is the motivation to have when practicing yoga.
Thank you. 그래서 도망 되고 저들이 짭제 조항도 지창들은 별로들이 많은 소문이지. 그 공짜에 된 것을.
When we first started the center, Druvang Rinpoche, who is really Vajradhara, he was here and he chanted the Mani mantra, and he really is Chenrezig.
My baby home, my baby home. Thank you. Thank you.